Good morning and welcome to Brussels. My name is Jörg Niehoff. I'm the Deputy Head of Unit for the unit dealing with the European Research Area, spreading excellence and research careers. And part of our responsibility is the WIDERA Work Programme that we are now presenting today. This is basically the last info day that we are doing for the current Horizon Europe Work Programme. And today's day is dedicated to the widening component. I will give you a brief overview on the agenda so you know what to expect of the day. We'll have a brief introduction by our colleagues Magda and Minna. I'll get back to that in a second. We explain the policy context of the work program and the overall architecture. And then we go basically call topic by call topic. In the morning, we start with the novelties of the work program. So we have a call on teaming synergies. I'll explain that in a minute. We have a novelty for the research management facility, and then we move on to the research managers, which is a variation of the ERA chairs, and then we go into well-known territory with the ERA chairs and the ERA fellowships. The timing we keep as precise as possible, so in the afternoon you see we start again at 13:30 for the twinning call, and the last call for the hop-on facility, and then the last two topics that we present at 14:30, so if you're interested in any of those, that's the time to come back for the EIC Pre-Accelerator and the Excellence Hubs. So that, I think, is all to give you an overview and the timing. Before we now go into the substance, I would like to invite Magda and Minna to give us an introduction to the day and a little bit of background. Magda De Carli is our Head of Unit and Deputy Director, and Minna is responsible as Head of Department in the agency, in the Research Executive Agency for the implementation of the program. So we work here hand in hand with the colleagues that take care of the call implementation from the evaluation to the grant preparation to the reporting. So if you're successful in the evaluations, those are the colleagues that you will see back again in your project. With this, without further ado, over to Magda and Minna, please.
Thank you, Jörg, and good morning to all. I'm very pleased to welcome you to our Info Day dedicated to WIDERA under the Horizon Europe program. We have just entered the last 2 years of Horizon Europe implementation. As was the case so far, the Horizon Europe Work Programme 2026-2027 will have a dedicated part addressing widening participation and strengthening the European research area, or as we call it in short, WIDERA. This part includes two components. The calls under the European Research Area component were presented on the 11th of December. In case you missed that part, you can rewatch it on the Research and Innovation Community platform. In addition to these two calls, let me also point out that the Commission continues its work on preparing the European Research Area Act, a legislative proposal aiming at achieving a single borderless market for research, innovation and technology across the European Union. This act will be an important milestone. It will respond to long-standing challenges and barriers in the research and innovation ecosystems in Europe, such as fragmented regulatory frameworks, uneven investments and barriers to knowledge sharing. The public consultations will close tomorrow, and I would like to encourage you to participate in case you haven't done so already. Today, we will focus on the second component of the WIDERA Work Programme, the spreading excellence and widening participation. This component aims to tackle the research and innovation gap in Europe. To help close that gap, the widening measures will continue to enhance access to excellence and build interconnections between innovation ecosystems across the Union. The REACH program that we have prepared for you today will give you an insight into the planned widening calls for proposals in 26 and 27. We will go through a portfolio of 9 complementary actions designed in a way to strengthen research and innovation capacities, mobilize strategic investments, strengthen links between academia and business, and attract excellence talent, and particularly in countries which lag behind in these areas. The planned EU investments for these actions surpasses 700 million euros. We plan 10 calls for proposals. As a result, around 600 projects are expected to be funded. Who will be eligible to apply? When will the calls open? What are the objectives of these investments and what are the expected outcomes? Our experts from the European Commission and the executive agencies will guide you through each call and provide the answers to these and other questions you might have on Widening 26 and 27. I now hand over to my colleague Minna from the Research Executive Agency.
Thank you, Magda, and welcome everyone to this InfoDay. For those of you who may be new to us, the European Research Executive Agency, known as REA, has a very straightforward mission to make sure EU research and innovation programs are implemented smoothly, fairly, and to the highest standards. And we certainly don't do this alone. We work hand in hand with our colleagues in DG Research and Innovation, and I would like to thank them for this opportunity to speak with you today. Their strategic guidance, combined with REA's operational expertise, forms the backbone of successful program delivery. As we start the implementation of the final work program of Horizon Europe, there's a genuine sense of excitement within REA. This ambitious work program has a great mix of widening actions, some of which you might know well, such as ERA chairs and twinning, and others which are brand new, including team in Synergies and the ERA research managers. We know that this will come with challenges, particularly as we anticipate a significant increase in proposal submissions, as we have already seen with recent calls. But with challenges come opportunities. The opportunity to engage with even more of your organizations and institutes from across the widening countries and beyond, and to help reinforce your efforts to strengthen research capacity and promote excellence more broadly across Europe. To support this growth, we will continue to rely on REA's strong and trusted evaluation system. It is something we are proud of, and we keep working to make sure it stays robust, fair, and able to adapt to new realities. One such example you will hear about today is the evaluation process which we will pilot for the next twinning call. This pilot, while maintaining the high level of quality and rigor you expect from our evaluations, will allow us to scale up effectively for a higher submission rate, while still ensuring that each proposal will receive the fair, comprehensive, and expert assessment it deserves. At the end of the day, REA and the European Commission's shared goal is simple: to fund the best projects and to provide solid support to those of you who receive widening funding, right throughout the duration of your projects. Thank you for joining us today. I wish you all a productive and enjoyable day, and I now hand back the floor to Jörg.
Thanks a lot, Minna and Magda. Thanks for being with us here today. I think that sets a good tone for the day and the ambition of what we want to achieve. Perhaps we go a little bit into the structure of the work program first to help you understand where the different parts are sitting. So on the first slide here, you now see the WIDERA Work Programme in the end has two very different components. The one is called Widening Participation and Spreading Excellence. That's everything we do today. And then there is the part on reforming and enhancing the European Research Innovation System. And for those of you that might have missed it, we had a dedicated info day on that second component back in December. And there's a link here in the slides that will be online very soon, where you can watch the replay. And again, the big difference, just to put that in a few words, is the widening participation and spreading excellence part is limited for coordinators from the widening countries, and I'll explain that in a bit. So there is an entry condition that is very specific to that part, because it addresses only the so-called widening countries. And typically the calls are completely bottom-up in terms of thematic area. So you choose the area in which you want to submit your proposal and the scientific domain. Whereas in the reforming and enhancing the ERA and innovation system, that is something that is open to any applicants from the member states and associated countries. But here we have very detailed topic descriptions that are addressing specific areas that come from the policy context of the Pact for R&I and the European research area, from open science to gender and inclusiveness and related topics. On the next slide, we see a little bit the different elements for the policy context. And I think even for you, if you prepare a proposal, it's good to read a little bit about this, because it gives you an idea of what do we want to achieve. And you will find even in the widening part, many of that language back. So the overall policy framework is something that we agreed with the member states in the communication on a new era for research and innovation in 2020, where we identify 4 priority areas that were then picked up by the councils, so by the member states, and they agreed on the 4 priority areas for joint actions. And you will see that especially the first part, deepening a truly functioning internal market for knowledge, and the third part, enhancing access for R&I excellence across the Union, are elements that also define what we do in the context of the widening component. But you see, basically, also the other elements, advancing concerted R&I investments and reforms, are something that is very relevant for the widening countries and the institutions, because it is all about institutional transformation and transformation of ecosystems. On the next slide, we have here the list of the countries eligible for hosting the coordinators. So the widening countries, as we have defined them, are the member states Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czechia, Estonia, Greece, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia and Slovenia. So it's basically the EU 13, the last accession countries, plus Portugal, plus Greece. We also have a number of associated countries with comparable innovation characteristics. You see the list here. They are fully eligible as coordinators, and we have the outermost regions that concerns then Portugal, Spain and France that are eligible as well. Now, here we talk about coordinators, but you will see later on when colleagues present the different topics that of course there are also ample opportunities from legal entities from the other member states to participate in these calls, be it as advanced partner to somehow contribute to knowledge transfer and to networking, or also in some of the other actions with their expertise of, for example, on research management. Keep this in mind, and as I said, this is exclusively relevant for the widening component. It does not apply at all for the ERA part that was presented in December. We often get that question, so for the ERA part, no conditionality in terms of participation. On the next slide, we have a little bit what you see also in the work program as expected impacts that we want to achieve. Let me pick up just a little bit of elements that we see here. So the one important part is to contribute to capacity building in the widening countries. We see that also due to long-term weaknesses in terms of national investments, there is still an important element of increasing the capacities in these countries, which we do, for example, with calls such as teaming and ERA chairs and ERA research managers. What we have seen as an impact of many of our widening actions, it helps to introduce structural changes at the institutions, and that makes them in the end more competitive and also more capable of participating in other parts of the framework program. And I think there we can really be proud of what you have achieved also as participants. We have seen that the widening countries as a group have tremendously stepped up their participation in the framework program compared to previous framework programs. So this ambition of helping them to step up and become either part of consortia, for example, in the second pillar, or be successful in the first pillar or in the third pillar, so MSCA, ERC, the innovation part. We see this happening more and more. We also have the ambition to involve more of the regional actors. So first calls of the framework program on widening were very much focused on the academic part, and you see now that we increasingly have introduced call topics that also involve other actors, economic actors, local ecosystems, and believe that's important in order to also have an impact at the local level, an economic impact, and make sure that the scientific and social actors engage both. And last but not least, there's an element of talent circulation, making sure we also have a good way of attracting talent to the widening countries, have mobility that is not a one-way mobility. Next slide, please. So the overview of the calls, and this relates always to the call closure. So you have to be careful and look at the work program to clearly see the different closing dates because they're spread across those years. So the calls that close in 2026 are twinning, the Hop-on facility, the last call we do on this topic, the ERA fellowships we have in 26 and in 27, the teaming Synergies action is closing in 26, and the research management facility. In 2027, we have for the last time in this framework program the Excellence Hubs. We have a joint call with 2 topics for the ERA chairs and ERA research managers. And we close with the ERA fellowships and the EIC pre-accelerator. Don't get confused, because some of these calls have budgets from both years. That's an internal administrative elements. Relevant is only the call closing date, and with the exception of the ERA fellowships, there's a single call closing date for any of the topics. With this, we move on now to the overview where you find more information. So first of all, the Bible for you is the Horizon Europe Work Programme. Read it carefully, both in terms of the topic description, of the call conditions, which somehow stipulate certain elements that relate, for example, to eligibility. So you don't want to miss them, because otherwise your proposal will be declared ineligible. And also the policy context. That's important for you to somehow place your ambition in the overall context of what we want to achieve. Whatever questions you have that we don't answer today, or where you want to be sure to get a correct answer also in writing, you can use the research inquiry service. Don't write to us directly, send your questions in there, because that makes sure that, first of all, it goes to the competent colleagues, and secondly, that all applicants get a view on the reply, and we have make sure that there's equal access to information. And last but not least, of course, you apply via the Funding and Tenders portal. That is where you find the forms and the entry to the portal that allows you to fill in your application and submit it in the end. I think this brings us now to the point where we slowly get to the first presentation. Let me just have a look. Yes, so we start with teaming synergies. So with me I have here Francesca, my colleague in the team, and Amelie from the agency. She's the core coordinator, so she will be the one that will organize the evaluation for this call and make sure there is a follow-up. The teaming synergies action relates to basically the lighthouse call that we have, teaming. That's an action where we bring together substantial funding from the framework program, up to 15 million, combined with funding from the member states, typically from the cohesion funds, same order of magnitude, to create or modernize centers of excellence. So that's the most visible and biggest type of call that we have. And here we have the ambition to, in particular, also ensure sustainability of the investment. And so Francesca will explain to us what we do in detail with that call and where this is sitting. Please, Francesca.
Hi. Good morning to everybody. I'm glad to stay with you today, and we start with the first call, as Jörg said, which is one of the main novelties also this last work program. Why it is a novelty? It's a novelty because everybody, all of you know teaming. We around 50 Center of Excellence created, but we understood and we realized that what we needed now is to take stock of the main results of this 50 Center of Excellence and to carry on an analysis and to check whether these Center of Excellence are really sustainable. This is why also a few years ago the European Court of Auditors, in its recommendation, strongly recommended the Commission to ensure the sustainability of this Center of Excellence, far beyond the 5 years of the duration of the project. So this call is really, I would also say this is a bottom-up call, because it's not also only a request from REA, from the Commission, but also from you, stakeholders and coordinators, that you really want us to have something which is more structured. This is why the main expected outcome of the synergy action for teaming for Center of Excellence responds to the need to ensure the sustainability. In this call, the key word is really sustainability of the Center of Excellence funded under the teaming calls, facilitated stronger collaboration and strategic joint initiatives among them. The call will open, as Jörg already said, this year at the 23rd of April, and the closing date will be the 24th of September. The kind of action is a CSA, and the budget will be 7 million for one project. The duration will be of 5 years. So this is so far, but what are in more specific the expected outcomes of this call? First of all, stronger long-term collaboration through structured joint initiatives and clustering efforts. this to enhance mutual learning, research resourcing, and innovation capacity. Second, strategic transformation of R&I systems. This also to enhance institutional cooperation and structural reforms. Third, promotion of multidisciplinary and transitional cooperation. This is more modern, it couldn't be more modern now, according to what we're living now. So really transnational cooperation to address the European and global challenges that we need to face. Fourth, promotion of area priorities. As an example, responsible AI usage, knowledge valorization, commercialization, SMEs, and startup initiatives. For those of you who participated to the other Info Day, I'm sure you are familiar with all these priorities. Then we have stronger visibility of Center of Excellence and their recognition at national, regional, and European level, so that there are also created stronger links with policymakers, industries, and society. And at last, improved synergies between Center of Excellence and national and European programs. This also that will facilitate, enhance the additional funding opportunities. So these are the main expected outcomes. Next slide, please. Then we go to the more in detail on which is the scope. We know that the call aims at fostering collaboration among teaming Center of Excellence, both the existing one and those resulting from ongoing or future call. On this, we are really quite open in view, because our main goal is to support in the efforts, I said before, towards sustainability and increased at regional, national, and European level. I here emphasize also what Jörg said before about the regional, national, and European level. The three levels are taken into consideration. Several activities are foreseen, at least, that should be carried out. One of these is strategic clustering for thematic collaboration, conducting a really in-depth analysis of the Center of Excellence capacities. Then, for example, pilot implementation of thematic clusters, really establish clusters and support the coordination of the different activities. This is also another relevant activities. Then, capacity building for knowledge valorization. We need to facilitate their preparation of knowledge valorization. We can organize, we can offer they can offer specialized trainings, peer learning, expert coaching. Then we will also have what is typical networking and matchmaking. This is obviously aimed at facilitating also the connection with the business sector, with the societal sector. We will also have as an activity teaming online platform, developing a digital networking to improve also here cooperation among Center of Excellence, provide access to shared resources, and also show success stories. This is also highly important. Then we will also have teaming conference. This is perhaps for those who are coordinators, this is really well-known activities, because this is the opportunity to really in person also share the knowledge, share the experiences, also possibility to attract international and talented participants. So this is really important for us that in the project there is this teaming conference. Entrepreneurship and tech transfer support. We now, in the last work program, you see this element in almost all calls, so to facilitate the creation of spin-offs and startup. These are at least the activities that we should be present in the project. The consortium, speaking about the consortium has to provide expertise in relation with the activities and accord to the defined activities. And the core of this consortium should demonstrate successful implementation, and once more the magic word, of sustainability strategies of the teaming Center of Excellence. But Also, other members, the complementary members of the consortium, can provide specific expertise. And we are thinking about training, communication, knowledge valorization, intellectual property rights. So this is also very important. Then I will also add that as we have also another instrument, which is the WIDERA dissemination and exploitation facility support, we should not overlap the actions, but take advantage what is being done by this facility support, because it could help a lot the success of the project on this teaming for synergies. So this is, in a nutshell, are the main elements of this call. I just wanted to add that I was in Portugal in October for this 4th annual teaming event. It was hosted by Biopolis, and I really realized, living the experience in person, how is it important, the interconnection, the networking, the share of information according to the different coordinators of the different center of excellence. So for us, this call, we attach a really strategical importance, because there will be a before and after this teaming for synergies call, because we take stock and we can look ahead in the future what is expected from this center of excellence. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Francesca. So a very important action for us, because we are looking here at a strategic portfolio of projects and at a consortium that is able to lift them to a different level and ensure that we have mutual learning between the different actions. Now, you have to include in your target group, so to say, the ones that are currently already being funded. You have to include the ones that are going to be selected in the next weeks and months, because we now just closed the second stage of the teaming call. But you also saw that in the I've lost it myself. We also plan then, of course, to have, with the duration of the project, I'm back on track, of 5 years, also it goes deep into the next framework program. So under the assumption that we have next teaming calls also in FP10, you also need to take care of that population. So in the structure of your proposal, you have to make sure that you foresee resources for onboarding these projects. I see that many of you already have figured out what I forgot to mention at the beginning. Use Slido for the questions. So make sure you launch the application, scan the code, and you're able to submit your questions that we are now going to slowly go into with our colleagues here, with Amelie and Francesca. Let me see what I can perhaps on the consortium composition and the coordinator. Francesca, can you go a little bit deeper into how the consortium should look like, and what do we expect from the coordinator apart from being someone from a widening country?
Yes, the real limit that we put in the work program is what Jörg said, that coordination should come from a widening countries. Apart from this important eligibility condition, the work program is not perspective regards the participation. What is really important is that they really carry on the substantive work to guarantee the sustainability of the action. This is the main action that this core of the consortium needs to do. Then obviously can participate the usual suspect, the higher education system, university, what they have been part previously in those teaming projects. And also this, as I said before, but perhaps it's better that I explain it better, that it's the other member of the consortium can really give an added value, helping, for example, with the training information, with trainings, with activities on knowledge valorization, or what is more IPR, which is highly demanded, in a teaming project. So these are the main characteristics that should be. Then we leave it also to your creativity in this call, because it's a first call for us. It's where you also want you to tell us what are your priorities on this. I can say that in principle, concerning the geographical coverage, the consortium should therefore cover all potential teaming host countries without being necessarily present in the widening country. So this is the main response. I don't know if you want to add something, or
perhaps a point that was also mentioned in the work program. It's important that the coordinator can demonstrate they have experience as a teaming coordinator, because you want to be sure that at the core of the consortium there is someone that understands the business of sustainability of the centers. So there are two sustainability issues that we have here. The one is that the action should support the sustainability of teaming actions as such. But it's also for us a one-off. We launch a 5-year project and we don't want to fund this then again in 5 years from now. We expect that there's a certain momentum that continues to provide services to some extent after the end of the funding. Let me go to another question that is perhaps rather for you, Amélie, because you know the teaming actions also from your hands-on experience. So what to expect in terms of support to existing and future teaming projects? How can that support be provided for, and what are the teaming actions looking for actually?
Thank you, Jörg. Good morning to all of you. So about how in practice the support will be provided to the users. So as my colleague Francesca explained very well, in view of achieving the objective of long-term sustainability and fostering collaboration between the centers of excellence, some activities will have to be organized. Francesca listed the activities. You can also find them described in the work program, which specify that at least those activities should be implemented. So more can be also organized, but at least those should be implemented by the winning proposal. So the winning proposal will have to organize those activities and, in more practical terms, provide some support and some services to the users, so to the centers of excellence. What is important to mention here is that those services will be free of charge and will be at the disposal of all the centers of excellence. So the existing ones, as Francesca explained, but also the future centers of excellence to be funded by ongoing or future teaming calls. And then, as Francesca explains, it's also very important to use the current tools to provide support and not have competing tools to avoid duplication of efforts.
Good, thanks a lot. There are now a couple of questions that I think need some clarification. So there is a question on the limits of activities that can be funded under the 30% R&I budget within the teaming project. So guys, this is not a teaming call. The teaming call closed. That's done for this work program and for this framework program. So the teaming synergies actions that we are looking at doesn't have any space for any R&I actions. This is simply animation of the population of the existing and future teaming actions. So don't include any R&I activities in there. It is not relevant for this action and would certainly lead to experts scoring the proposal down. It is also something where we have to be clear that participation is limited to institutions from the member states and the associated countries that are relevant here. Third-party participation beyond that is not an option. On the other hand, within that geographical scope, any type of institution is eligible for being part of the consortium with what we mentioned before, a couple of conditions. The coordinator has to come from a widening country. The coordinator has to have teaming experience. And of course, the consortium has to somehow demonstrate in their proposal that every partner has a distinct role to support the ambition of the project. We don't want to see massive proposals with an exaggerated number of participants. So make sure that you build something that is smart and workable with complementary expertise that cover the different activities that we want to see and that have the necessary possibilities to support the geographical coverage. And as Francesca perfectly said, we don't necessarily see a consortium that has partners in each and every widening country. That is not necessary to achieve the objectives of the call. Perhaps on the long-term sustainability and how do we assess progress that we make Perhaps, Amelie, you can explain a little bit what are perhaps indicators that can be useful or how the consortium can approach that.
Yes, indeed. The important word is in fact indicators. The winning consortium will have to already include in the proposal some indicators to quantify and to assess the long-term sustainability of the centers. Because this being the key objective of the call, we would like to make sure that in the application already this has been taken into account, and there is a way to really measure the effectivity and the efficiency of the activities that will be put in place. So this is very important for the applicant to already think about this. And then, of course, the Commission services will also assess the results of the proposed activities and of the proposal in general. This is a new call, so there is so far not much return on this call, obviously, but the Commission services will assess the results after the proposal will be implemented.
Okay, good. Then there's a question from Patras on co-funding. So the successful application will be funded with the 100% reimbursement rate. So all the eligible costs will be covered by the grant agreement. There is no co-funding necessary for this kind of teaming synergies action, because this is in the end a service facility, if you want so, for the entire population. Then there is a question that I have to read myself now. Do you expect one or more entities providing mentoring and support to others in the consortium, or do you expect all entities to mutually and equally benefit from the planned activities? So perhaps I'll cover that myself. I mean, in the end, you have to make a proposal in what you think is best suited to cover the different needs of the teaming population, because in the end, the teaming projects that you are supporting are in different stages of their life cycle. They have different needs, so you will have probably to find a tailored approach and describe in your proposal how to make sure that indeed what you do is helping the population individually and overall. And of course, there are overall components that also Amelie mentioned in terms of monitoring also progress towards sustainability that you would need to address. So I think with this, we come to the end of our Teaming Synergies section. If you have still questions, please, as I mentioned, use the Research Inquiry Service facility. The link will be in the slides that we share with you. And with this, a big thanks to Amelie and Francesca. Francesca, we will see back later on. Amelie will see again in a few minutes from here for the next topics. So stay tuned. We will be back online at 10:15, I believe. Thank you. Welcome back and good morning for those that join us now for the next topic. Perfectly on time. So this is now something that, again, is a novelty in our work program, the so-called Research Management Facility. It is linked to also one of the actions that we are implementing together with the member states and stakeholders as part of our so-called ERA policy agenda. So there is an agreement to treat this as a priority in the context of the European research area. And we have a couple of contributions on our side in the work program. We will first see the research management facility and later on also the ERA research managers. I have with me again Amélie and Adeline, our colleague, that will stay with us for the rest of the morning for a couple of topics. And so on the research management facility, perhaps Adeline, why do we do that and what do we expect from applicants?
All right. Good morning. Thanks for being with us this morning. So I will summarize in a nutshell what it is. It is a new action. So what are the expected outcomes? The Research Management Facility aims to provide institutions in widening countries that want to establish or upgrade their research management capacities with tailored support and advice to develop an implementation strategy for the changes in the institutional setup, in line, of course, with the ERA priorities. The action does not, however, support the implementation of this strategy. So that's the definition. So what does that actually include? To encourage the establishment of stronger research management capacities in widening countries. I here would like just to say and to highlight that why did we actually somehow drafted those two actions, ERA management facility and the ERA managers? Basically, it's because we identified a true need in those countries to strengthen what we called the meta conditions that actually allow for research to basically exist. So support the institutional reforms in research institutions and national R&I systems, strengthen, of course, the human capital with entrepreneurial and well-trained research managers, promote and support multidisciplinary and transnational cooperation in the field of research management, promote practices in agreed ERA priorities such as ethics, open science and data, gender equality, contribute, of course, to the knowledge-based economy and society. I would like to recall that the call opening is in April, by the 23rd of April 26 this year, and will close in fall, 24 of September 26. It's a CSA, and it will have a budget of 7 million. And of course, there is only one winner, one consortium. Next, please. So what are the context and scope? So the scope is really to create a research management and administration facility to provide services and training to institutions and their staff in the widening countries. Those that are wishing to establish or upgrade existing capacities and competencies in research management. The facility should invite research performing organizations from widening countries and support them to assess their needs for excellent research management capacities and develop implementation plans to improve their institutional capacity. So it's a bit long, but the scope is quite rich in there. The activities that are covered by the proposals. 1, to support the assessment of institutional needs in research management, administration and training, with the research performing institutions requesting their services. Okay, there is absolutely no obligation to go to the research management facility. Support the development of tailor-made implementation plans to establish or upgrade existing research management capacities at institutional level. Train research managers in widening countries to improve their skills, in line with the European Competence Framework for Research Managers, provide research managers from widening countries with networking opportunities at European international level to improve their integration in the broader research management community. This is a very important point, by the way. For the proposal, they will estimate the number of target institutions and individuals during the entire duration of the action. They will have to describe the methods, so the methods to prioritize their services, if the demand exceeds the project resources and demonstrate the full geographical coverage for the widening countries, including the outermost regions. And I guess that's my last slide.
Okay, thanks a lot, Adeline. So again, this is similar to the teaming synergies action. A single proposal will be funded. It's a service provider for a large population of institutions in the widening countries. You don't have to be present in each and every country, but you have to make sure that your services that the consortium wants to provide can reach even down to the outermost regions. That's important to keep in mind. Now we start looking at some of the questions, perhaps on the consortium composition. Adeline, from our experience also and your work on research management, what kind of competences do we expect them to have? How can that be reflected in the partner structure?
Yes. Well, it all goes back to what is the essence of research management activities and the nature of that. So basically, we have thought of this research management facility as kind of a coach hub somehow to help the institutions and the people in their institutions who either wish to start a new research management unit or to break a great one. So these people have a slightly different profile than researchers per se. They may be ex or old researchers. That of course can be extremely important, but mostly these people are very well abreast with management, administration, and of course financial skills.
Okay, there's also a follow-up question on the role of NCPs in such a consortium. Do they have a place there? Is there a limitation?
They do have a place. Now, as you may recall, we have issued some time ago some guidelines on this. The WIDERA NCPs are not allowed to participate, and the rest of the non-WIDERA NCPs are allowed, but if they host also the WIDERA NCPs, they have to give the Commission, let's say, assurance that they have put in place all the necessary measures to mitigate this.
And of course, we know that all countries have a big portfolio of NCPs that cover the range of the different parts of the framework program. So I think these are also well placed to support institutions because they also work in a thematic context. So if you think NCPs are a useful partner in your network, make sure that you don't integrate those that are directly working in the context of WIDERA. Perhaps I saw floating by a question that's perhaps more for Amélie in terms of costs of the project and payments. Do those that want to use the services of the facility have to pay for these services, or how will these be costed?
So the services to be provided will be done on a free basis. So the users won't be charged. The cost will be covered by the grants.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. And then there's a question on if there's a minimum number of countries to be included in the research management facility project. Adeline, your take on that perhaps?
Yes, so the minimum is three countries. Two of them have to be member states. But you can go above, okay? But our experience tells us that between 3 and 5, it's still under some management capabilities. Beyond 5, it needs to be demonstrated that it's something that can be actually done, really. But yeah.
Okay. Thanks. So when you build your consortium and you present it in the proposal, make sure that you give a good description of the complementary competences of each partners. You might have an argument on a certain size that is necessary to ensure the geographical coverage, etc. But make sure that you put resources to meaningful work and don't waste too much resources on internal coordination. There is also the question on whether this facility can also help widening institutions with any existing research management unit or competences, capacities. Perhaps, Amélie, you can go into that?
Yes, thank you. So the objective of the call, as explained by Adeline, is to foster the research management capacities, but this can be done on the basis of existing one or in case there isn't any existing already. So both options are possible, and yes, in case there isn't any research management unit existing, it's still applicable for this call.
Okay, good. Then there's a question if we would consider funding more than one project. So this is the clear no, because we want to make sure that we have a single consortium that can provide services across the population. And if we would have competing consortia with services that address the same population, we would create duplication and possible confusion. So a single project that is able to demonstrate the full coverage. We also do not intend to repeat this call in the near future. We haven't given a strict indication on the duration, but we look again at the duration of, let's say, 4 to 5 years for this facility. It depends a little bit on how you allocate resources over time and how you estimate the target group and the number of institutions that you serve, as Adeline explained. But for us, this is something that we would like to cover the time into the next framework program, and then we have to see if there's further need in the far future, but for the moment this is a one-off, because also, as you know, the work program covers the years 2026 and 7. We will not add any topics to the current work program. Then there is a question, Adeline, on is there an element of where that research management facility will be based, or how do we see that?
Yes, if I would say no, then we wouldn't be in the widening group here. But of course, yes, it has to be based in the widening country. Jörg reminded you the list of the widening countries and outermost regions. And therefore, yeah, this is, of course, within the widening program. So yes.
Perhaps also another recommendation for applicants. You will see in the call text a reference to our competence framework for research managers. I think that's important to have a look at, because that will provide you with a frame of your work when you describe your activities on research management, because it has a quite comprehensive way of looking at what research management is. It is not only applying for union funding, it starts from other elements, it goes into knowledge valorization, data stewards, etc. So there is a wide range of activities that fall under the scope of research management, and we want to make sure that you provide services to institutions with the possibility to indeed cover that broad range and allow them to decide what are the most important elements for them to get your support. Now, there is a long question. Let's quickly read that. Current research and education budget cuts result in research manager positions to be decreased. Many researchers were forced to work both as a professor and a research manager. How to align the situation and the call program? Well, I think the logic of our support here is to also raise awareness in the leadership of the institutions that it is important to provide sound structures for research management. And I think we are looking here also at a service provider team that is able to give evidence that there are positive impacts on having dedicated teams on research management and make sure that these things are properly resourced. And of course, we see also in a few minutes from now, with another call topic on the ERA research managers, that we also want to mitigate a little bit the situation of lack of resources and help boosting that in a couple of institutions. So these two topics go a little bit hand in hand, but they have very distinct objectives. I think we are running now slowly out of questions. So on the minimum number or reasonable number of partners, so I think the point that Adeline made rightly is that 3 is the minimum, and there is a size where a consortium is easily be managed, and from a certain point on, if you increase the consortium size too much, you will probably spend more resources on internal coordination. So it's a balance between justifying the size of the consortium and the different complementary skills that you need in there in view of being still efficient in the implementation. And the last question that we can take here, could multiple partners participate from the 3 member countries of the consortium, or must each be represented by only one organization? So again, you have to cover at least 3 member states or associated countries, but you can have more than one legal entity from any of these countries. Straightforward answer, I hope. Good. That brings us to the end of this session. We break for a short moment and we see you back in a few minutes with the same team that we have right now. So stay with us. We will go for a short break and see you back for the ERA Research Managers. Thank you. Oh, they were very nice. Welcome back. I'm still here with Amelie and Adeline. Nothing has changed. Now we move to a topic that is called Research Managers, another novelty. Here we are going to fund a lot more than a single project. And many of you will be familiar with the ERA chairs. So if you know the ERA chairs, this is very similar, but there are some important differences. And Adeline will explain them to us in a second. After we do the research managers, we continue with the ERA chairs, because here, even if it is a familiar topic that goes back to previous framework programs, we have introduced a couple of small changes. You will have seen that the text is a bit shorter compared to previous editions. So we want to make sure that you understand the current version and the small tweaks that we have made as well. But first, ERA research managers. Adeline, please.
Yes, hello again. So as Jörg said, it's similar to ERA chair, but it's not ERA chair. So you'll see a bit the subtleties here. So the ERA research managers will be they will be published in 27.
Next slide.
Next slide. Yes, thank you. So here again, what are the expected outcomes? First of all, the definition. The ERA research manager's leadership and the establishment of a permanent high-quality research management group will boost excellence, visibility, and, most of it, integration within the ERA, improving competitiveness in research funding and promoting institutional reforms aligned with ERA priorities. So this is our mantra. So what does that actually include? The ERA research managers aim to attract experienced research managers to universities or research organizations in widening countries, establishing or upgrading institutional capacities for research management, fostering brain circulation, and creating pockets of excellence that enhance institutional culture and performance. Now, there are different levels. At the system level, for instance, and here we can list all the items. For instance, the idea is to have more research and innovation talent moving to widening countries, increased international, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral mobility. At organization level, for instance, to strengthen research management capacities, increase the attractiveness to top international research managers, and of course, subsequently, researchers, establishing of a lasting high-performing research management group with institutional benefits. So here you will notice that the call will be open on the 6th of April 2027, next year, and closing again in fall, the 14th of September 2027. Again, it's a CSA, and here we have a lot more money. We have 60 million euro, and we will fund an indicative number of projects, about 30 projects. The duration is for 5 years. Next. What are the context and the scope? The scope is research organizations in widening countries have to submit or will submit a proposal aimed at establishing or upgrading existing research management capacities in the institution with realistic, feasible strategy along the entire duration of the project duration. It will also include the description of the investments in research management capacity building, projects, staffing, facilities, and infrastructures. The ERA research manager, so this is a person. So of course he or she will be an excellent research manager with proven international experience. So, and he or she will be appointed through an open merit-based recruitment subject to monitoring by the European Commission. What are the conditions? The conditions to appoint the ERA research management team are the same as for the ERA chair holder. The grant will cover salaries, recruitment, travel, trainings, and of course, administrative expenses. And I think this is my last slide.
Very good. So it's important to read the call text very carefully, because there are a number of very specific elements that we haven't explained all here because they would fill too much of our time, but pay attention to them because some of them are related to the eligibility of the proposal. Some are very important because they express the commitment of the institution to have a long-term investment also in the positions necessary. And it's important to keep in mind that one of the main distinctions between the ERA chair and the ERA research manager is the ERA research manager and its team, they're expected to work at the institutional level. So it addresses the entire institution and the setup of the institution, be it a university or a research center. So make sure you put that at the right level, which also makes it very evident you can only submit one proposal for an ERA research manager as a legal entity. So with this, we open up now again for questions. Please remember to use Slido, and we have a couple of minutes before we go to the next topic. So perhaps on the employment of the ERA research manager, are there specific conditions that apply, Adeline?
Well, first of all, and again, I will always make the comparison within the ERA chair. We're dealing here with a very different profile, Jörg. For the ERA chair, and I would like to insist, we're dealing with a researcher who, of course, will have capabilities of team leadership, etc. Here, we're entering another world. The ERA research manager can or are not ex post researcher, but not necessarily. There is an entire new generation of these people. And they provide, as I said somewhere at the beginning, all the information and the help, the support for the methodologies that will help research to actually exist. So have I answered the question? Not sure.
I think so. Otherwise, you will get it probably again.
All right.
It's okay. There is a question around the eligibility of the ERA research manager, and I think perhaps we can look at that both from the institutional perspective as well as from the perspective of the individual that will be recruited. Amélie, perhaps you give it a try?
Yes, thank you. So the ERA research manager can be from any country. What is important, as said already, is that it doesn't have any contractual relation or arrangements with the host institution. In terms of the organization, so the hosting entity, maybe Adeline, you would like to add something on this question, or?
Yes, well, actually, the host, what you have to realize here, and that's why I would like to go back to this item on self-assessment. The self-assessment of that institution will demonstrate, or not, that this institution is in need of a research management team and support. Okay, so of course there is no obligation, and it's really, as we said, at the institutional level. So that first, let's say, introspection from the institution must take place. I would like, if I may, make a relationship with the research management facility. If you remind, if you were with us with the previous slides, the research management facility will be open in 26 this year. And of course, we did this on purpose so that it leaves enough time for the people who would be, or institutions who would be interested to have and to set up a research management team, and of course to prepare the ground to have an ERA manager to be coached by, for free, to be coached by this research management facility, providing these institutions has done its homework, which is doing this self-assessment.
Okay, very good. Then let's pick another question. Can ERA chair-funded institutions, individuals apply for ERA research managers? So applications are submitted by legal entities that coordinate this proposal. And so, of course, in principle, it's possible that one legal entity submits a proposal for an ERA chair proposal and for an ERA research manager's proposal, because they address different topics. What has to be clear that it should not be possible to submit more than one proposal for an ERA research manager, since the institution at that point commits to an institutional strategy to transform the system of how they organize research management at institutional level. So there we would expect that you submit a single proposal, but it doesn't mean that you cannot also submit in parallel a proposal for an ERA chair. I think that covers now the questions that we have on the screen. Perhaps in your own words again, Adeline, since you will also present the next one, in a nutshell, difference between ERA research manager and ERA chair.
Yes, no problem to repeat this. So we're really dealing with different people with different profiles. The ERA chair, as you're much more, let's say, fully abreast with this, is a researcher of a different categories, preferably, I mean, from anywhere in the world, who will come to either set up or strengthen an existing research entity. So the idea here is to have somebody who is from a certain discipline with some sort of questions and with an agenda of doing research, and of course having to deal with his or her own team that he can build and pay for that. Fine. For the ERA research manager, and we have these questions because for some of the institutions it's still not, it's new, it's a new concept, so that's normal, okay? We are really conscious about this. So ERA research manager, I can tell you that usually the population is more actually female, because why? Because it's also, it has a different professional profile also. So you're not doing research, you are actually not only looking for funding or, let's say, filtering all the potential calls that the Commission or other funding institutions are publishing, but you're making sure that there is a team, you're working at a different scale, you're working at an institutional level and not at your research team level, but you're in very close contact with the different research teams. So you understand what it is to actually make research possible. So I'm sure we'll have still a lot of questions that we will happily answer with the rest as we go along. And yes, we may provide also some time to answer more questions at some point.
Good. I think there's an important question here that wants to see if a researcher that is willing to work mainly on research management can also be part of that application. So we have to be clear. I mean, we want to have experienced research managers. So this is not for someone that wants to change job profile, but someone that has demonstrated at a relatively high level successful management of research in an institution. So I think that's also important to keep in mind. You have to do a screening here, which are good candidates for your institution to take over that capacity. And once you have successfully submitted your application, once the ERA research manager that launches basically that institutional transformation is in place, then of course you can recruit other people, including those that want to look into changing their career path from pure research to research management. But you have to demonstrate that the candidate is a valid candidate with track record in doing research management at the required level. And that's also something that we hope to be clear in the call text. So there is the research manager that is identified in the proposal that will launch that process of building up a team or increasing the team that is there. And then at some point, the institution has to turn that into a permanent position. And of course, the person that came over to launch that process is free to apply to that vacancy as well, but it does not necessarily. And there is also a clear description in the call text of what that person is expected to continue to deliver even after the time that the permanent position has been filled. So read that part carefully because that's important to get right. And so, yes, on the first question, just to underline that again, the proposal has to come with the individual identified and committed to do that work in the institution. You have to do that selection process as part of building your proposal. That's why we also put that in 2027 to give enough time for institutions to, first of all, do that self-assessment, and secondly, make sure they find good candidates and build that proposal with them, because I think that is something that we have learned from the ERA chairs, that is important to have that ownership of that individual that comes with the proposal. Adeline, perhaps you can add on that?
Yes, just to add on what you just said, because it's an exciting new action, but I know it can be frightening for some people who are really not used to this. Please remind that there will be the research management facility, and one of their roles as coach is to, if you don't know where to look for an experienced research manager, it can be to help identify the best criteria, and perhaps then you will be really greatly helped by this. So I can view those two actions together. Please make use of this research management facility. It will be there for you, actually. Yes.
Okay. Then there's a question whether it has to cover the entire institution if the institution is large. I mean, of course, it is up for your consideration to argue that this covers only part of the institution, but since we have drafted the call text here in a view of demonstrating impact at the institutional level, you will probably have difficulties in demonstrating the same impact if you only cover part of the institution, a couple of faculties. So we leave that to your choice, but just keep in mind that you address properly the requirements of the call text. Good. I think with this we have covered a good part of possible questions. Again, be carefully reading the call text because there are intrinsic details on recruitment, on previous experience with the institution for other team members. We don't need to repeat that here. Just read the text carefully and make sure that you have that in mind in not only describing what you do in your proposal, but also in case you're successful in implementing that. And with this, I thank the two of you.
Thank you,
I
Jörg.
thank Amélie, which we are not going to see in the next session.
Correct.
We break
Thank you
to
very
change the setup here, and we will see you back in a few minutes. Thank you. So here we go again, from ERA research managers to ERA chairs. Now here the idea is to attract the leading scientist, researcher to an institution in a widening country. So the same mobility principle that we saw before. I should also mention an element that we didn't mention before. So the ERA research manager is still based on actual cost. So you have to budget your proposal according to your expected expenditure. And an element for the ERA chair here is that this is based on lump sum. So there is a dedicated approach to this. And I think we can share also in the chat perhaps the guidance that our central colleagues provide on the use of lump sum, because it has a certain implication on how to present your proposal. But that is not for today, that you can do offline. Now we go into the substance with Adeline and Barbara, the call coordinator now from REA with us. We currently have 71 ERA chairs action running under this framework program. And you will see in a second from Adeline that we are giving this a tremendous boost with the budget and the expected number of proposals that we are funding. But over to Adeline. Adeline, tell us about ERA chairs and everything the applicants need to know.
Yes, good morning for the third time then. Right, so I'm diving into the expected outcomes of ERA chair. So the definition again, and this is known by everybody, but I will repeat it. The ERA chairholder's leadership and the establishment of a permanent, highly quality research group will boost excellence, visibility, and integration within the ERA, improving competitiveness in research funding and promoting institutional reforms aligned with ERA priorities. So the ERA chairs aim to sustainably attract outstanding scientists and innovators to universities or research organizations in widening countries, fostering brain circulation and creating pockets of excellence that enhance institutional culture and performance. At system level, for instance, we will see that there is an increase in research and innovation talent moving to widening countries, increased international, interdisciplinary and intersectoral mobility. At the organizational level, for instance, is to strengthen research excellence in the ERA chair field, increase attractiveness to top international researchers. Call opening is the 6th of April of next year, 2027, closing in fall, 14th of September 2027. It's a CSA. And bingo, there is 175 million offered there. We expect to have at least 80 projects for a duration of 5 years. Next, the prospective ERA chair holder, he or she. Who is she? So it can be from any scientific domain, from any country. The research institution is what we called a mono-beneficiary. The ERA chair holders may relocate permanently or temporarily with secondments, sabbaticals, or part-time arrangements possible. However, a minimum of 50% of full-time equivalent, the FTE, commitment has to be done, including on-site presence. Contractual arrangements, which include the salary, travel, daily allowances, and other benefits, and contractual details, if employment is the preferred option, have to be specified. What about the research team? It will be established by the ERA chair holder and integrated in the coordinator's institution to improve its research performance and obtain competitive funding. The team's recruitment will be led by an international panel chaired by the ERA chair. The leader of the newly created research group to be appointed will be on a permanent basis within the institution in the first 3 years of the of the project. Open recruitment process is monitored by the European Commission. Now, there is at least 20% of the permanent team members that should have tenure, not including the team leader, and no more than 50% having prior contractual links to the institution. It's a lot of 50% here, so you've got to kind of read carefully. For the grant, what does that cover? Salaries, recruitment, travel, research costs, up to 20% of the EU contribution, and administrative expenses. I think this is all for me. Now So I leave the floor to Jörg.
Okay, super. So then we go directly into Slido and the questions. Let's see what we have here. Let's pick the last one, the short one. Can an ERC grantee become an ERA chair, Adeline?
So these are two different things, but in principle it could be possible. Again, the ERA chair is a measure that is funded by the widening program. So it will have to be done within a widening context. The RC, as you know, can be from anywhere else. Yes.
But I mean, at least in terms of excellence of the
yes.
researcher, that ticks the box easily.
Yes.
Then there is a question on the presence of the ERA chair in the institution. Perhaps Barbara, you can say something on that because you monitor that as well?
Sure. So the ERA chair presence on site has to be foreseen in the proposal. The work program specifically says that the conditions and let's say the contractual arrangement for the ERA chair has to be described already in the proposal. There is not an obligation relative to a certain amount of time that the ERA chair has to be present, but it simply says that there is a certain amount of time of physical presence. The full-time equivalent that the ERA chair has to be to dedicate to the ERA chair project is 50%. And it is 20% once the team leader has been appointed and recruited and appointment starts. So after that, there has to be a handover process and the ERA chair still has to be available for 20% of the time. Now, how to decide how much the ERA chair should be present on site? This is really a key, very important point in all the elements of a proposal. You have a proposal which has to achieve certain objectives. And so everything that you present in the proposal has to be instrumental to the achievement of such objectives. So if the presence in person of the ERA chair is very important for the achievement of these objectives, of course, the presence has to be appropriate for that. And the evaluators are the ones who are going to decide how far the presence of the ERA chair is presented in the proposal is okay or not.
Okay. I saw a question flying by that I thought was interesting. It is about how you monitor, in the end, the recruitment process. So the colleagues of you or you that
Yes.
also are in charge of the grant agreements, how is that interaction with the institution on that point of recruitment procedures and your monitoring?
Right. So the recruitment procedure also has to be described in the proposal. And also here, the experts are going to decide whether the recruitment procedure is appropriate or not. Of course, it has to have a panel made of international independent people who are going to do the recruitment. And there has to be a deliverable that describes in a credible way how the procedure has happened. So the procedure has to be open, transparent, and this deliverable, once the moment comes that the deliverable is submitted to the project that has been selected, then we will assess it with the help of an external evaluator. So it's not going to be only us, so the people from my institution who are going to assess that, but there will be also an external independent person.
Okay, perhaps I combine two of the questions for you, Adeline. It's the question whether the ERA shareholder can be from the same country as the legal entity that is recruiting, and to what extent is there mobility obligation in terms of another institution and or another country? Perhaps you can elaborate on that a bit.
Yes. In order to answer this, you have to actually, again, be fully, understand very well what is the objective of the ERA chair. Legally, an ERA chair holder can be from the same institution, even, and can be from the same country, proven that experience, etc., etc. But what are we doing here? Here we're giving the possibility to have somebody from anywhere else in the world. We're trying to increase the international dimension of that team or that team to be, and therefore somehow it seems a missed opportunity if somebody not from another culture, language, methodologies, ways of doing cannot be integrated and bring perhaps some elements that may be perhaps considered a bit deranging, a bit or unsettling, but that will actually include and foster institutional changes. ERA chairs is really about introducing institutional changes, for instance, increasing the international dimension of that institute for that particular research organization. So the permeability is very important. But again, it's up to the proposer to actually make that choice, yes.
Yeah, but just to clarify that, they can be from the same country, but they cannot have prior contractual relations to the institution that is hiring.
Yes.
So it's new to the institution. That's the important part here. Good. Then there's a question on the requirement that 50% of the members of the team, again, should not have previous contractual links with the coordinator. Now a PhD student, which moves from student, which is in the contract, to a PhD student. How does that work, Barbara?
Yes, so it's not impossible that a PhD student becomes part of the team, legally speaking. Of course, a PhD is also a contractual obligation, right? So it's also a contract. So if the PhD student stays or becomes part of the team, it should be the 50% that can have already a previous contractual obligation. But let's say it is important to say that the ERA Chair program is not aiming at supporting PhD students, especially not when the role of the PhD student is only learning and creating their own future career. Okay, so it's really, if there is a PhD student, the work contract with them should really be very practical and include really work-related activities rather than learning.
Okay, very good. Then there is a question similar to the one that we had before for the ERA Research Manager. If the proposal should already identify the future ERA chair holder that is building the team, and yes, indeed it is necessary, because we have seen in previous installments that it is very important for the ERA chair to be part of the proposal preparation, to have ownership and work together with the team from the institution to build this and make sure that there's a common understanding on both sides of what needs to be achieved. So you need to find someone that you like in your institution, that likes your institution, and build the proposal with them together. Make sure he or she is clearly visible in that proposal with CV, with commitments, and so on and so far.
Yes, and also may I add one thing, that even the two of the eligibility conditions are about an agreement. So there needs to be a letter of commitment, and from the ERA chair and from the institution, to commit to the work to be done, and also to the contractual obligation, which are going to be part of the proposal. So they need to be very well described, including the salaries, including the timeline, including how much full-time equivalent the presence of the ERA chair should be, etc.
Okay, I think the first two questions on the screen we have somehow covered. Can a laboratory or a faculty within the institution be the beneficiary of the ERA chair? So the beneficiary is always the legal entity. But of course, the legal entity, the university, the research institution can decide where in that institution they want to place the team. And of course, there's a thematic focus around the team that is built. So that is up then to the legal entity to define where that structurally sits within the institution. So there are some new questions now coming in. After the first 3 years, the institution has to appoint a new team leader. The ERA chair will not stay until the end of the project. So, Barbara, what are the options?
Yes, so indeed, the team leader has to be appointed. It even can be the ERA chair themselves. And yes, the ERA chair will stay up to the end of the project, but the full-time equivalent, so their effort in the project can be reduced, and it has to be a minimum of 20%.
Okay, so either you are recruited for the long run or you stay on in a supporting position. These are the two options that you have. Good, then let me pick the last one here. No, it disappears. So I think there is a bit of a confusion here between the openness of the recruitment process for the team and the specific person that is the ERA chair that launches the process. Perhaps Adeline, you can clarify that once more.
So indeed, there are two things. There is this ERA chair, who is this person, and there is his or her team. As it is specified, the ERA chair holder must be specified, must be involved in the preparatory works of the proposal. So this person will be already in your proposal. Then there will be an international panel that will be actually described in one deliverable, if I'm correct.
The panel, yes, sure.
Yeah,
The recruitment process has to be.
Absolutely, and this will help actually the setting up of the team. This panel will be chaired by the ERA chair, who will be from the start of the proposal. I think this is more easy to understand.
Okay. Good. Then perhaps we take the first one on the tenure positions. Usually tenure positions are based on an open competition and highly competitive. How to ensure that senior members of the team must get tenure positions? Perhaps, Barbara, you have the experience from your practical grant management.
It's not written anywhere really that senior members must get tenure positions. So there needs to be 20% in the team tenure position. The team leader has to be a tenure position too. But who are the members of the team is, let's say, the composition of the team in terms of level and qualifications has to be already described in the proposal. So this is the only requirement that is there. And then again, the composition of the team, the levels and the profiles need to be in line with the objective of the proposals. And that's what the experts are going to check and evaluate the proposal upon.
Okay, good. I think we have somehow covered what we see here on the screen. We give our colleagues dealing with the Slido questions a moment to see if some late entries come in. But I think all this has been covered. So wonderful, good. So then we wish you the best of luck with your applications. There's a lot of budget out there for up to 80 ERA chairs to be funded. So amazing opportunities to institutions to set up a new team, and a lot of career perspectives here for people to either be part of the proposal or work for the successful teams once selected. Please keep also in mind that we have published the call in the work program, so you have the full details that you need to know to prepare your proposal, but the call is opening only next year, so be patient in this, because you will only be able to access the funders and tenders portal at a later point in time. You saw the opening date of the call in the slides. The slides, as you mentioned before, will be online on our portal immediately after our session here. And of course, if you have the feeling there were questions you would like to hear to again, or presentations from Adeline and Barbara, you can always go back to the video of this session that will be timed on YouTube in the next days. With this, I thank both Barbara and Adeline. Thank you for your help here.
Yes, thank you.
And good luck with the evaluations, Barbara.
Thanks.
There'll be a lot of stuff coming in. And we see you back in a few minutes for the ERA fellowships to close the morning. Thank you. Welcome back now for something completely different. So I have with me Isabel from REA, from the colleagues dealing with the MSCA part, and Nada from our team here. We are now looking into the ERA fellowships. I think it's almost the oldest type of action that we have to support widening countries. It builds on the MSCA postdoc fellowship and targets institutions in widening countries and supports mobility of researchers. So 2 called closures, one in 26, one in 27, but the conditions are exactly the same. So you can choose which year you want to apply. And I guess if you're not successful in 26, you might even apply again in 27. But we will hear more about that from Nada and Isabel that shared the presentation. Please, Nada, you start us off, please.
Thank you, Jörg, and still good morning to everyone. Indeed, it's another action which focuses on talents. It's an action which builds on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie postdoctoral fellowships action by targeting host organizations located in widening countries. And Jörg already mentioned we envisage 2 calls, one in 2026, one in 2027. In both cases, the calls will open in April and close in September of that year. The budget, 8 million per year. And we expect an indicative number of 50 projects to be financed per call. The duration of this project is between 12 and 24 months, but we will also come to certain details at a later stage. The projects are supposed to contribute to a series of outcomes at different levels. At the level of the fellow, we expect an increased set of research and transferable skills and competencies, which then leads to their improved employability and career prospects in academia, but also beyond. Acquired new mindsets and approaches through this international, interdisciplinary, intersectoral experience, and enhanced networking and communication capacities with their scientific peers, but also with the general public, which then contributes also to broadening the impact of their project. There is certainly an important impact on the host organizations as well, primarily in increasing their attractiveness and their visibility, their reputation. We expect these institutions will achieve a greater alignment of working conditions for researchers in line with the principles set in the European Charter for Researchers. We expect an enhanced quality of research training and supervision, as well as better research and innovation capacity and output and better knowledge transfer at these institutions. Finally, there's an important outcome as well for the widening countries, primarily in their capacity to attract more postdoctoral researchers. On the next slide, we will go more into the context and the scope of these 2 calls. As Jörg says, they are identical, just they will open and close twice in these last 2 years of the framework of the work program. So looking at the scope, the ERA fellowships are open to excellent researchers who are undertaking cross-border mobility. The fellowships are taking place in a widening country, and they're open to researchers of any nationality and in any discipline. The applications have to be made jointly by the researcher and the legal entity in the widening country, whether it's in the academic or the non-academic sector. There is a possibility for secondments. This is a possibility within the overall duration of the fellowship in any country worldwide, and it can be a single mobility period or it can be divided into shorter mobility periods. What is important to say also that it has to be in line with project objectives. It has to be clear what value such a secondment brings to the project and to the researcher. Similarly with the placements in the non-academic sector, which is a possibility as well at the end of the project, to be stressed, and we're talking about an additional period of up to 6 months. It can take place at a host organization in non-academic sector in any EU member state or Horizon Europe associated country. The rationale for such a placement is to support career moves, to support intersectoral mobility. Nevertheless, this possibility is also open to those fellows who are recruited in the non-academic sector, but in that case, the placement has to take place at a different host organization. One more thing to say about this is that the request should be an integral part of the proposal. It has to be clear what is the added value of such a placement. It has to be clearly explained as it will be subject to evaluation. A few more words from my side on trainings and career development plan. So the trainings to be implemented under the ERA fellowships should cover key transferable skills. We have in the work program a reference to a report which may help you in understanding what transferable skills could be. Then innovation and entrepreneurship, for example, IPR, commercialization, good scientific conduct, such as open science practices and similar. The career development plan is also to be established jointly by the researcher and the supervisor, and it has to be clearly set what are the research needs of the researcher, the training needs, the mobility needs. This is a plan which is submitted at the beginning of the action as a deliverable, but it can be updated at a later stage during the duration of the project. And with this, I can pass the word to my colleague Isabel for call conditions.
Thank you, Nada. I will be now talking a bit more about the call conditions, as the REA is responsible for the evaluation, and I want to give some key insights also on the evaluation procedure. So the ERA fellowships apply the same criteria in scoring as the MSc postdoc fellowships. The ERA fellowship need to pass all the thresholds for the MSc postdoctoral fellowships. Most importantly, they need to reach a minimum scoring of 70. The award criteria are the same. They cover excellence, impact, and implementation. And it's the same weighting that applies to all these three criteria, as it's the same evaluation for both. Then there's also the eligibility criteria, which are a bit important for this call. They are on the level of organization, the level of MSCA, and also on the level of researcher specifics. So for MSCA rules, to highlight some, there's no resubmission allowed for proposals that scored less than 80 in the previous call. Another example of such rules would be that there should be only one proposal per researcher. So if there are several proposals submitted, only the latest one will be taken into consideration. For the researcher, there are also some rules. The first, obviously, is the researcher has to hold a postdoctoral degree or has successfully already defended this degree before the call deadline. Another rule would be that the researcher has to have a maximum of 8 years full-time research experience. They are allowed to have some research breaks outside the academia or for personal reasons like maternity or parental leave. This will not count for the 8 years. And another rule is that the researcher has to comply with the mobility rule, and this is of course to ensure that a real mobility takes place between the countries. Now, what is the specificity and the beauty of this call? Applicants can apply to 2 calls with simply ticking a box on the MSc postdoctoral application form. It will increase the possibility of funding, but of course under the premise that the scoring is a minimum of 70%. Then these proposals will be transferred to the ERA fellowships call and ranked also under the ERA fellowships call. In addition, they receive a new proposal number, which you can see in the funding and tenders portal. And that then is a new ranking list established. Now for the Seal of Excellence, it's also awarded for proposals that are successful, in the sense of that they are higher than 85%. Then you will see a month after communication of results, the Seal of Excellence, and you can download it from the portal. And I hand back to Jörg for the questions.
Okay, thanks a lot. So, to put it in simple words, if you apply to this from a widening country, you seriously improve your chances of being funded, because first of all, we use the widening budget to fund additional proposals from widening countries. And if that doesn't work, you might even turn back to your country and see if the Seal of Excellence is supported by the country in order to get funding there. And of course, we have noticed that the last call that closed in autumn 2025 was highly oversubscribed. So there's a tremendous interest that we see here coming to these kind of calls. And we assume that this is the case also for 26-27. So make sure you write a good proposal, because you have to be in the top scores in order to be successful. Now we see first questions coming in. I start with the bottom perhaps. And I ask Isabel, what is an MSCA IF, and can they apply for an ERA fellowship?
And MSCA IF were the previous abbreviation for the call in the last framework program.
Okay.
So now it's a postdoctoral fellowship, and that was the IF is individual fellowship. And yes, they can apply again for ERA fellowship.
Okay, good. And equally perhaps for you, because you know them also from running the grants, for the ERA fellowships, is there a condition related to the number of years after the PhD award?
Yes, what I a bit mentioned before, it's 8 years. So from the award of the PhD award, it's 8 years. Now there are some exceptions. You can have a career break because of maternity, parental leave, and we also do not count if it's outside academia.
Okay, then the first one looks a little bit complicated to me. Let's see. Are holders of MSCA Seal of Excellence funded by a National Research Council eligible? If yes, how many years can pass after the beginning end of the MSCA Seal of Excellence? So someone that was basically submitted, not funded by the union, but nationally, can they come back?
Yes, they can come back, yes.
Okay.
Obviously, yeah, no problem.
And on the question of, is there a number of years that have to pass between the two applications?
Not that I know, but you cannot have. I know that you cannot have two MSCAs at the same time, and the same project cannot be funded
by different sources.
By different sources. So it would depend on the case what exactly is submitted.
Okay, and from what I hear from you, it would also mean that if the Seal of Excellence funded institution and individual apply successfully, they would have to give up the national funding by the time the European funding kicks in.
If it's the same project, for sure.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So be careful with that. ERA fellowships, also again, the question, can the beneficiary postpone the start of the project, I guess, for personal reasons, etc.? How does the starting date look like?
This is definitely possible. It can be also for professional reasons. So you can discuss it with your host institution. The host institution comes back to the REA and discuss it with us. There are some rules attached to that. It cannot be later than the 1st of September of the year following the grant signature. It sounds a bit complicated. It means if the grant signature was done in May 26, and you envisaged your project start date for the 1st of November 26, you can postpone it until the 1st of September 27. And obviously it should be communicated before, and the amendment has to be done before.
Okay, good. So there was again the question on the Seals of Excellence, and perhaps as a general comment on this, you will see that in our work program, every mono-beneficiary call that we have will be awarded the Seal of Excellence, so it also applies to the ERA fellowships, but not only, it's the same for the EIC pre-accelerator and some other calls. Perhaps, Isabel, you mentioned that before, the transfer from MSCA to ERA fellowships and backwards. How does it work in practice?
Well, in practice, it's, first of all, very important to say it's the same evaluation. Once we have finalized the evaluations, proposals that are scored with 70% or higher, they are transferred virtually to the ERA fellowships call, and then they receive a new ranking. So it's our own ranking list that we established for the ERA fellowships call, and then successful candidates and reserve list candidates, they will receive a new proposal number.
Okay, so it means basically that you evaluate it once,
Yes.
but you end up in two distinct
Yes.
ranking lists.
Yes.
Okay, good. I think that explains also then the first question here. Perhaps I don't know who wants to take that question on the mobility aspect. What does mobility actually mean? What do we expect from the individuals in terms of mobility? I see you nodding, Nada, so
Well, Isabel can complement for sure, but in this particular ELA fellowships, it means moving to a widening country. Perhaps you can complement also from the perspective of the MSCA.
Yes, no, this is all fine. I would just add that there is, of course, some rules attached to that you cannot have resided or carried out the main activity in the country of the beneficiary for more than 12 months in the 36 months prior to the call deadline. Again, a bit complicated, but it means that there should be a real mobility, a physical mobility, and that's the most important thing in this case.
Okay, then perhaps as a last question, we take the one that is here at the bottom. How is it at the end of the 5 years? Can you return home, or do you have to stay in that country? Do we have any requirements there?
After 5 years? Well, after the project, the fellow is free to continue the research career as they want.
Super. Okay, good. Then I think that's a good closure for us for the morning. Many thanks, Isabella and Nada.
Thank you.
Again, good luck with your applications. And we start at 1:30 sharp with the remaining topics for the afternoon, which are the twinning call, the excellence hubs, the hop-on, and the EIC pre-accelerator. So 4 exciting topics, again, with substantial budgets, especially for the twinning call. So come back in the afternoon and see what else we have in stock. Thank you.